Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. Poland is building almost 1,000 kilometres of fortifications on the border with Russia and Belarus. These include anti-tank ditches and ground obstacles reinforced with electronic surveillance. The aim is to discourage Russia from attacking the eastern borders of Poland, the European Union and NATO. The Ministry of National Defence has presented the assumptions of a strategic project called East Shield. It is expected to cost 10 billion zloty. Those in opposition have pointed out that just a few months ago, members of the current government were against strengthening the Polish army. Poland fleshed out details of the East Shield, a $2.55 billion programme to beef up defences along its eastern border with Belarus and Russia, saying it hoped to complete the plans by 2028. The border has been a flashpoint since migrants started flocking there in 2021 after Belarus, a close Russian ally, opened travel agencies in the Middle East offering a new unofficial route into Europe, a move the European Union said was designed to create a crisis. The Polish Defence Ministry presented details of the programme, including plans to build fortification, hubs and telecommunication systems in coordination with other Eastern Frontline NATO allies, Finland, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. Defence Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz said this was the largest operation to strengthen Poland's eastern border since 1945. That's why we need a long-term infrastructure plan which would include fortifications, different types of barriers, but also, or maybe most of all, state-of-the-art systems to monitor the airspace at any parameter, at any height. We will use the drone component. We will use unmanned vehicles and anti-drone systems, which are more and more developed, efficient, and they will be put to use. Deputy Defence Minister Cezary Tomczyk said some of the planning works would start this year, with investment starting in the first quarter of 2025, and were expected to be completed by 2028. Poland hopes to tap EU funds for some of the projects. We want this project to start immediately. It will start this year. The planning is still in progress. Mr. General will talk about it later. We want this project to be completed by 2028. The estimated cost is 10 billion zloty, and this is only the material cost. It is also very important. It is a huge investment in our country's scale, but also on NATO's scale. It is an additional safety buffer, which is very important to all of us. We want it to be covered by the means from our country's budget, but also from European sources. Poland's previous government built a fence on the Polish-Belarusian border that is more than 180 kilometers long and 5.5 meters tall to protect against illegal migration. It is complemented by a system of cameras and sensors monitoring the frontier. At the time, the project was highly criticised by some people who now endorse strengthening the border. This is not the Law and Justice Conference of 3 years ago when Lukashenko launched a hybrid attack on Poland. We will always defend every centimetre of the territory of Poland and the inviolability of our borders. This is a press conference of the government of Donald Tusk. Costs are secondary when it comes to our security. We must do everything to ensure that the border is fully secured. This is a 180-degree about turn, because 3 years ago the entire civic platform voted against the construction of the fence, citing, among other things, the large costs. We will not support them in such, to put it mildly, ambiguous undertakings. They are making a terrible spectacle, a terrible hunt for these children and mothers. They are going to build a wall and a fence and another wall, and even better, they are going to connect electricity to it. Now the platform is trying to convince Poles that it has always been in favour of building the border wall by putting posters like this online. You voted against the wall, and you can see that unfortunately it is not tight. People are opening it with levers. We were in favour of sealing the border, which we are always on behalf of the civic platform in the matter of state of emergency and in the matter of sealing the border. And my opinion on this matter is the same. The border must be sealed. Such is the narrative, but facts say that civic platform voted against the border wall construction. The reasoning, or simply the deviousness of the PO politicians, is perfectly demonstrated by the change in Donald Tusk's narrative. Now illegal immigrants are deemed dangerous, aggressive, not excused as poor people. The pressure on Poland's eastern border is not a spontaneous migration of people fleeing from different countries. At the moment, these precise data are very disturbing. Over 90% of those who cross the Polish border illegally are people with Russian visas. When Tusk wanted to attack the Law and Justice government, then, playing with the safety of Poles, he said this about illegal migrants. And if these people had declared war on us, these poor people looking for their place on earth, and there is no need to make such disgusting dark propaganda against immigrants, because these are people who need help. Just let these people into Poland. We will find out later who they are. What do you have services for? When it comes to people at the border, are they just seeking help or not? They are different people. They are people who were instrumentalized by Putin's regime and Lukashenko's regime. They are sent to the Polish border, and there are certainly different people there. There are people who use aggression against Polish officers. While in opposition, one can say all sorts of stupid things, but you also have to take responsibility for them, and you can't act like they did back then, because it was detrimental to Poland's security. Back then, the barrier and the construction of the barrier was something crucial, and we had crazy crazy people who were against it, both in the Sejm and during the construction. Unfortunately, these are the facts. There were fights with soldiers and officers defending the border. These people are so tired they don't even want to eat or drink because they have nowhere to go. That insults the defenders of our border. It is terrible that this happened on the Polish border or in front of the border because it is no man's land. People who need help and a doctor are not allowed to get to them. Personally, I think that if there is a need for politicians to show up at the border, they should definitely do it. There is no need for that now? I do not know. Are there still pushbacks? Apparently not. Thank you very much. Goodbye. 3 years ago, the opposition was joined by the mainstream media with their false stories and fantasies. The Belarusians pushed him into the river and he swam for 6 days. It was last week. He swam for 6 days during the day in this icy water, and at night he went ashore wet and frozen. He lay down on the bare ground. He didn't light a fire because he was afraid someone would see him. It's a pack of dogs that cornered poor people. That's not what soldiers do. They're just rubbish. The European Union has adopted a migration pact which requires Poland to accept migrants who have been expelled from other European countries or to pay for their stay with the sum of euro 20,000 per person. The European Union calls this mandatory solidarity. The politicians of the ruling Civic platform conveniently forget that they agreed to the relocation in 2013. Who in their right mind wants to bring migrants to Poland? Edita Holdinska has been checking. Politicians are blaming each other for the migration pact and its consequences. Who hasn't opposed tightening the regulations since December last year until this year, since the pact has been in force? And who agreed to migrate the migration pact in 2014 when its first version was being worked on? I'm checking this today. At the meeting attended by Rafał Trzaskowski, it was agreed that these 2,000, this is a conventional number, we can deploy more people in Poland. This is to implement a slogan that is very important for us Poles, in the name of European solidarity. The perversely understood European so-called solidarity made the Civic platform ready to accept and implement the Migration Pact in 2015. Today, the platform uses law and justice of accepting the refugees. The pact, which at that time did not have such a name, had been worked on since 2013 to 2014. The countries of southern Europe and Germany in particular pressed for the forced relocation, and after Angela Merkel's invitation, anyone who set foot in Europe had a chance of legalising his stay. However, after Law and Justice won the election in 2015, no consent was given to the Migration Pact in Poland. After the change of government, when Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki was already Prime Minister, after 2017 he emphasised that no country could be forced to accept migrants unless it consented. The topic is back. At the meeting on the 20th of December, none of the representatives of the current Polish government objected because no one showed up. And a few days earlier, Prime Minister Donald Tusk promised Poles in his exposé that he would not bow to the Brussels diktat. He also cited his influence within the EU authorities. Nobody can really cheat me in the European Union. Despite these assurances, the Council and Parliament reached an agreement on the reform of the EU's asylum and migration system. Southern European countries, which receive illegal migrants from Africa, as well as Germany and Austria, which have problems with overcrowded migration centres, and France, which has been unable to cope with migration policy for years, insisted on adopting new, stricter regulations. The French Prime Minister revealed that he had convinced the countries of Eastern Europe to accept the pact. On the 14th of May, the Council adopted the EU Pact on Migration and Asylum. We made Eastern European countries agree to a migrant relocation system. Poland was against adopting the pact, pointing out that it did not sufficiently address the specific situation of the countries bordering Belarus and Russia. And this is at our expense. We will pay for that. It was forced on us. The Migration Pact consists of 10 EU regulations that concern, among others, control of illegal migrants, downloading of biometric data, procedures for submitting and examining asylum applications, rules for determining which member state is responsible for examining an asylum application, cooperation and solidarity between member states. It maintained the rule of mandatory solidarity but with voluntary relocation. The pact assumes a significant tightening of the asylum law, so that asylum seekers are treated equally throughout Poland. Most regulations are to apply from 2026. Poland is one of the largest European producers of car parts, but it does not have its own brand. This was to change with the creation of the Izera electric car, which was to be built in the southwest of the country together with the Chinese company Geely. There are many indications that this opportunity is now a thing of the past. The government is postponing important decisions and the company has started talking to partners from other European countries. In the coming months, the European Commission plans to impose tariffs of 30% on cars imported from China. For this reason, the Chinese company Geely may transfer its investment to another European country, and if this happens, the first Polish electric car, the Izera, will not be built. The Chinese are making it clear that they will not wait forever. EMP does still not even have secured financing for the project because further financial arrangements depend on the project being included in the KPO. The project may end up in the bin at any moment, even if the government finally does give the green light. The Law and Justice government's idea was to include co-financing of the production of a Polish car from EU COVID funds. However, the Donald Tusk government deleted this investment from the National Reconstruction Plan. Moreover, at the beginning of April, Piotr Zaremba, who headed the company responsible for the construction of the factory, was dismissed. He was replaced by Piotr Dragulski, which was a surprise for the industry as he has no experience in the automotive industry. The Chinese notice contradictory signals and also see changes taking place within the company. Our personnel decisions seem mysterious and the decision-making impasse at the government level is even worse. So why are there no specific decisions on the part of the government apart from verbal declarations? The largest automotive makers in Europe are Germany, Great Britain and France. The emergence of a new player in Central and Eastern Europe would certainly not be favourable to corporations from Paris or Berlin. It seems that this is the government's approach again. Why do we have to produce electric cars if the Germans are already making them? It is worth noting that due to the decision of the Polish government, the Polish state will subsidise the purchase of used second-hand electric cars. The government will allocate approximately 1.6 billion zloty for this purpose. This means that Poland may turn out to be a sales market for used cars. For example, from Germany. Interestingly, Berlin ended subsidies for electric cars in 2023. They will allocate billions of zloty so that Poles can get subsidies for electric cars, but used ones, which means the German business will benefit. The production of cars, especially electric ones, is a dynamically developing industry around the world. We know that high technologies provide the highest margins, so this is an attempt to put Poland into the corner. Izera's electric car production plans assume that from 150,000 to even 300,000 vehicles would leave the factory each year. It would change the automotive market throughout Europe and will be felt by the current establishment in the EU and above all by the dominant European companies. Polish companies will also benefit from the investment. A highly technological project in Poland will drive the development of the entire economy. This is a way to save 10% of Polish GDP that will not exist if such a project does not happen. It is worth noting that Turkey already completed the national car project a year ago, although work on it started later than our project. The manufacturing of the electric car is especially important. It's a bit incomprehensible that for so many years Poland has no large car brand with such potential. The creation of the Izera factory for a Polish electric car would create 600 jobs. This is the staff necessary to run one shift of the production line. According to preliminary plans, the factory could employ 2,000 people by the end of 2026. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda has won the country's presidential election in a runoff, despite concerns about security in the European Union and NATO member country next door to Russia. The Baltic nation of 2.8 million people has been a staunch ally of Ukraine since Russia's 2022 invasion. As in other countries in the region, it is concerned that it could be Moscow's next target. Nausėda told jubilant supporters in the capital Vilnius that he will continue working on the country's defence capabilities. Lithuanian independence and freedom is like a fragile vessel which we need to cherish and keep from cracking, he said.
First of all, I would like to thank Lithuanian people for this support, really very significant and very remarkable support. And I think it gives me the opportunity to continue the work and activities I started 5 years ago. My basic principles and my highest priorities were support to Ukraine, strengthening the security of Lithuania, active foreign policy, and active participation in different formats of European Union.
Ballots from nearly 90% of polling stations showed Nausėda, 60, winning roughly three-quarters of the vote, followed by Prime Minister Ingrida Šimonytė, 49, from the ruling centre-right Homeland Union Party.
And I look forward to meet my friends in Washington in next NATO summit, and I hope that we will be able to take bold decisions regarding support to Ukraine, strengthening of eastern flank of NATO, and of course our ambitions to increase defense spending, because this is very important, and we should not talk about the attempts or efforts of individual countries to increase defense spending, and the rest of the countries is just not moving forward.
As President Nauseda has a semi-executive role which includes heading the armed forces, chairing the defence and national security policy body and representing the country at NATO and European Union summits. The former senior economist with the Swedish banking group SEB, who is not affiliated with any party, won the first round of the election on the 12th of May with 44% of the votes, short of the 50% he needed for an outright victory. Simoniti was the only woman out of 8 candidates in the first round and came second with 20%. Both Nauseda and Simoniti support increasing defence spending to at least 3% of Lithuania's gross domestic product, from the 2.75% planned for this year, in the wake of Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Like other Baltic nations, Lithuania worries it could be Moscow's next target. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has said he has no intention of attacking any NATO country. The family and friends of Maria Dujevska gathered at the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Warsaw to say their final farewells. She was an anti-communist opposition activist during the communist era and film director, and was known for her straightforward and honest nature. She was laid to rest at the military cemetery in Warsaw. She wanted to present and make Poles aware of the Smolensk crime. She devoted every day to this. She fought for her witnesses, their every statement, every element of editing, so that her films would reflect her personality. And her personality is true. It is curiosity. It is universal cinema that remains in the memory of future generations. She didn't care about the topic as such, but she had to explore it to the end and show the truth about the man about whom she was making material. Show the reasons for his actions, his strength, values and his weaknesses. She wanted to present and make Poles aware of the Smolensk crime. She devoted every day to this. That's the news. Thank you for watching. And from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.